When my boss looked me straight in the eye and said she needed me to pretend to be her husband for 1 year, I forgot how to breathe. Her office sat high above downtown Denver on the 36th floor, all glass walls and sharp edges, with the skyline stretching wide behind her like it belonged to her family. Maybe it did. Her last name was Sterling, and in our company, that name meant power. Real power. The kind that signed checks and ended careers. I stood there in front of her polished desk, my hands sweating, my heart pounding so loud, I thought she could hear it. I did not know if this was a joke, a test, or the beginning of something that would ruin me. The first thing that came out of my mouth was the most honest and stupid question I could think of. Do we have to sleep in the same bed? Luna Sterling did not smile. She did not blink. She leaned back in her chair like she was studying a problem she had already solved. That depends, she said calmly, on how convincing you want to be. A week earlier, my life was already collapsing. My name is Adam Bennett. I am 28 years old. I grew up outside Austin, Texas, in a small, dusty town where everyone knows your name and your mistakes. 5 years ago, I moved to Denver with big dreams and very little money. I told myself I would rise fast. I told myself I would make my dad proud. Instead, I became a junior copywriter at Sterling Marketing Solutions, writing ads for products I could never afford. My cubicle was gray. My coffee was cheap. My paycheck was smaller than my hope. Every morning felt the same. Crowded train, earbuds in, even when there was no music, just to avoid talking to anyone. I rewrote the same ad campaigns with different words, like putting a new jacket on the same tired story. At night, I went home to my small apartment in Capitol Hill. The sink always had dirty dishes. The air always smelled like old takeout. The silence always felt heavy. The worst part was not the job, it was the money. My dad had been a mechanic. He worked until his body gave out. Last year, he was diagnosed with lung cancer. The bills came fast and hard. We drained savings. We used credit cards. I sent every extra dollar I had. I promised my mom it would be okay. Then my dad died anyway. The grief was sharp. The debt was sharper. By spring, I was more than $50,000 in the hole. I woke up at night doing math in my head. What could wait? What could not? What could I sell? My camera. My guitar. Anything. Then my landlord slid an eviction notice under my door. 3 months behind. No more chances. I stared at that paper for a long time. I felt like I had failed everyone. My dad. My mom. Myself. That Monday morning, I was at my desk early, staring at overdue bills in my inbox when a new email appeared. No subject line. Meet me in my office. 9 a.m. sharp. It was from Luna Sterling. Everyone at the company had stories about her. She was 42. Vice president. Sharp bob haircut that never moved. Perfect suits. Calm voice that could silence a room. She did not joke at happy hour. She did not make small talk. She was not mean for fun. She was focused. She also had a brother, Derek Sterling. People whispered that he wanted her job, that their father's trust required her to be married by the end of the year to keep control of the company. If she failed, Derek would step in. At 9 o'clock, I knocked on her office door. She did not say, "Come in." She pointed to the chair across from her desk. Then she slid a thick folder toward me. "Open it." I did. And my face burned. Inside was my life. My debt. My father's medical bills. My eviction notice. My bank statements. My credit report filled with red numbers that screamed desperate. "How did you get this?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I had a background check done," she said calmly. "I needed to understand your position." "Why?" She folded her hands neatly. "Because you are in free fall, Adam, and I need someone who has a reason to say yes." That was when she explained everything. The trust clause. The rule written by her father. She had to be legally married by December 31st, or she would lose controlling power of Sterling Marketing to Derek. "I will not let that happen," she said. I stared at her, waiting for a punchline. It never came. "I need a husband for 12 months, she said. "You will move in with me." Attend events. Hold my hand in public. Smile for cameras. Play the part. My mouth felt dry. And what do I get? She pushed another paper toward me. I clear all your debts. Every bill. Every loan. Your rent. Your credit cards. And at the end of 12 months, you receive $100,000. My heart slammed against my ribs. It was insane. It was also the first door I had seen in months that did not lead to another wall. I looked at the contract, then at her. Do we have to sleep in the same bed? Her eyes held mine. That depends, she repeated, on how badly you want to survive. I walked out of her office in a daze. The hallway felt tilted. People laughed and typed like nothing had changed. But my world had just been turned into a business deal. That night, I stood in my apartment and tried to imagine saying no. I pictured my landlord changing the locks. I pictured calling my mom and admitting I failed. I pictured driving back to Texas with shame riding next to me. By morning, my pride lost the fight. I returned to Luna's office before anyone else arrived. You decided, she said. I picked up the pen. My hand shook. I am doing this to survive, I said quietly. Not because I want your money. She studied me for a long second. Then, survive, she replied. I signed. By 5 that evening, a black SUV was waiting outside my building. The driver said nothing. Luna's penthouse was high above the city. The elevator opened straight into her living room. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Pale leather furniture. Clean lines. No warmth. It felt like a museum. Your room is down the hall, she said. Second door on the left. Relief washed over me. Separate rooms. Then, she handed me a thick binder. Memorize this. Inside was our fake love story. Where we met. Aspen charity event. Fast romance. Private wedding. Favorite foods. Names of family members. Even edited photos of us together. There was a section called Public Behavior. Hold hands entering rooms. Stand close for photos. Hand on her back, not her waist. Kiss on the cheek only. This is insane, I muttered. It is precise, she said. Insane gets people caught. Dinner was quiet. Expensive sushi. Long table built for 8 people. Just us, sitting far apart like strangers. You will keep your job, she said. But tomorrow at 8 a.m. the press release goes out. Tomorrow? Yes. That night, I lay in the guest room staring at the ceiling. The bed was too soft. The silence felt different here, rich, controlled. The next morning, the company exploded with whispers. By noon, Luna stopped at my desk. Tonight, 7 pages M, she said softly. Charity gala. Your first test. When I arrived back at the penthouse in the suit her assistant had delivered, she was already dressed. Black gown. Diamond necklace. Perfect posture. In the car, she turned to me. Smile. She said, let them think you adore me. Do you want me to adore you? For a split second, something flickered in her eyes. I want them to believe you do. The gala was bright and loud. Cameras flashed the moment we stepped inside. Luna looped her arm through mine like it belonged there. Her touch was light. It still sent a shock through me. I smiled. I told our fake story. I held her hand. Then Derek Sterling approached us with a smooth grin. So you are Adam, he said, shaking my hand too hard. The man who stole my sister's heart. Luna's fingers tightened around mine. Adam is my husband, she said evenly. Derek's eyes scanned me like I was a product label. Funny, he said. Luna does not do surprises. Maybe I am her first one, I replied. His smile sharpened. Or maybe you are her most useful one. He leaned closer. I always find out what is real. When we got back to the penthouse that night, Luna stood still in the middle of the living room. He suspects, she said. We were pretty convincing. Not convincing enough, she replied. Then she looked at me with something serious in her eyes. If he thinks we are cold behind closed doors, he will dig until he proves it. My heart began to race. What are you saying? She held up her phone. Private investigator hired. He starts tonight. Then she met my eyes. Starting now, we stop looking like strangers at home. And suddenly, I understood. The hardest part of this deal was not pretending in public. It was what pretending might turn into in private. I followed Luna down the hallway like I was walking into something I could not name. Her bedroom was bigger than my entire old apartment. Dark walls, heavy curtains, a bed wide enough for 3 people, perfectly made, not a wrinkle in sight. The room felt controlled, like every inch of it had been planned. She stood at the foot of the bed, facing me. We need rules, she said. I let out a breath. Good. Yes. Rules are good. No touching without asking. No jokes about the contract. If anyone is watching, we act natural. And no separate rooms. My heart skipped. So we are really doing this. Yes. She walked to the nightstand and picked up an extra pillow. Without saying anything else, she placed it in the center of the bed. This stays between us, she said. I almost laughed, but her face was serious. The pillow was not funny to her. It was safety. I changed by the closet, turning my back. She changed in the bathroom. The sound of the door clicking shut made my chest tight in a way I did not expect. When she stepped back into the room, her hair was loose. No makeup, no sharp suit, just a simple silk nightshirt. Without the armor, she looked different, younger, tired, real. We climbed into bed. The mattress dipped under our weight. I stared at the ceiling, aware of everything. The sound of her breathing, the warmth of her body only inches away. The way the pillow between us felt too thin and too close at the same time. After a long silence, she spoke. Turn toward me. Why? If someone is watching, distance looks wrong. I turned slowly. She was already facing me. Her eyes looked softer in the dim light. You look like you never sleep, I said quietly. I sleep when I win, she replied. Then she paused. That was a joke. It caught me off guard, and I smiled. You are not very good at them. Her lips twitched. For a moment, the air felt lighter. We stayed like that, facing each other across the pillow. Not touching, not speaking, just breathing. It felt strange how quickly pretending started to blur. The next morning, she was back in her suit before I even opened my eyes. The cool executive mask had returned like it had never left. At work, the whispers were louder. People stared at me like I had stepped into a different league overnight. By Friday, Luna called me into her office again. We are going to the family estate tomorrow, she said. My stomach dropped. Estate? Weekend gathering. Board members. My mother, Derek. I swallowed. And we share a room. Yes. Her jaw tightened when she said it. She did not like this any more than I did. The estate was massive. Stone walls. Long drive. Perfect grass that looked untouched by real life. It felt like a place built to impress, not to comfort. At dinner, Luna was flawless. Calm smile. Soft laugh. Hand resting lightly on mine at the right moments. I played my part too. Aspen charity event. Fast romance. Private ceremony. Then Derek leaned back in his chair and looked straight at me. What do you love most about my sister? The room went quiet. Luna's fingers pressed into my leg under the table. I looked at her. I love that she never quits, I said. She walks into rooms where people doubt her and she still stands tall. That kind of strength is rare. Derek's smile flickered. Strength, he repeated. Luna's eyes met mine, and something passed between us. Something warm. Something grateful. After dinner, we escaped upstairs to our assigned room. The door shut, and Luna's shoulders finally dropped. He is digging, she said. Let him, I answered. He will not find anything if we do not give him anything. She gave a small, tired laugh. You sound confident. I am not, I admitted. I am just trying not to panic. She looked at me for a long second. Then her voice changed. What if he wins? The fear in her eyes was real. Not controlled. Not calculated. Without thinking, I stepped closer and wrapped my arms around her. At first, she went stiff. Then slowly she softened. Her hands grabbed the back of my shirt like she was holding on to something steady for the first time in a long time. I hate needing anyone, she whispered. I know. She lifted her head. We were close enough to feel each other's breath. This is not part of the plan, she said. I know. She kissed me anyway. It started soft, careful, like she was testing something fragile. Then it deepened. All the rules faded. The pillow. The contract. Derek. Her hands slid up my shoulders. Mine held her carefully, like she was both strong and breakable at the same time. When we finally pulled apart, her forehead rested against mine. That was real, I said. Yes, she whispered. That night, the pillow did not stay between us. We did not talk about the contract. We did not talk about the board. We held each other like two people who had been alone too long. The next morning, sunlight cut across the room. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then Luna's phone buzzed. She reached for it, and her face drained of color. She turned the screen toward me. Grainy photos. Of us. In this bed. My arms around her, her mouth on mine. My stomach dropped. There were more. Too many. He put a camera in here, she whispered. Another message appeared under the photos. If you want to keep the company, meet me alone tonight. Luna's hand trembled. And in that moment, I realized Derek had not just been testing our marriage. He had been waiting for it to become real. By noon, Derek had turned one kiss into a weapon. Luna stood by the tall window of our guest room at the estate, her phone in her hand, staring at the mountains like they could give her an answer. Her posture was straight, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. She was not used to losing control. He wants me alone tonight, she said again. You are not going alone, I answered. You do not understand, she snapped, then closed her eyes like she hated the sound of fear in her own voice. If he leaks those photos, the board will call this fraud. They will say I lied about the marriage. They will say I used the trust clause to block him. They will hand him control. And if you go alone, I said, he still leaks them whenever he wants. You would be proving he can scare you. She looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the battle inside her. Pride against survival. Control against trust. I cannot lose this company, she whispered. It is my life. It is the only thing my father ever respected about me. I stepped closer and took her hands. They were cold. What about you, Luna? I asked. What about your life outside the boardroom? Her eyes flicked away. We have proof, I said. The messages. The threats. He planted a camera in a private bedroom. That is illegal. She inhaled slowly. We forwarded everything to her personal attorney, Grace Nolan. Within minutes, Grace's calm voice turned sharp and focused. Do not delete anything, she said. Screenshot everything. Keep the phone on you. And do not meet him alone. Next, Luna called her mother. Eleanor Sterling did not panic. She listened in silence, then said, Your brother has always been desperate. Now he is reckless. Reckless men make mistakes. After that, we met with the estate's head of security, Marcus. He scanned the room, confirmed a hidden camera had been found behind a decorative vent, and his expression darkened. If he approaches you tonight, I will be there, Marcus said. Luna looked at me after Marcus left. You moved fast, she said quietly. I grew up around men who thought they could push people around, I replied. The trick is, you stop letting them. Her eyes softened. Adam, she said, you did not have to do this. I want to. The words surprised both of us. That evening, the estate felt heavier. The air seemed thick with tension. At 8, we walked down to the library where Derek wanted to meet. The room smelled of leather and old wood. A fire burned low in the fireplace. Derek stood near the mantel, a glass in his hand. "I said alone," he said when he saw me. "You said meet," Luna replied calmly. "I am here." He lifted his phone. "I send these to the board, to the press, to every client we have," he said. "Your career ends tonight. Sign over your voting shares and I bury the photos." Luna's fingers tightened around mine for just a second. "You planted a camera in a private bedroom," she said. "You threatened me. You threatened my husband." "He is not your husband," Derek shot back. "He is a paid actor. That should have hurt. Instead, it made me steady. I signed a contract," I said. "That part is true, but you are terrified of losing to her, so you cheat." Derek stepped closer, anger flashing in his eyes. Then the library doors opened. Grace Nolan walked in, followed by Eleanor Sterling. Marcus stood behind them. Derek's face went pale. Grace held up a folder. "We have screenshots of your threats," she said evenly. "We have timestamps. We have a security sweep report confirming an illegal camera in a private guest room. A police report is being filed tonight." Eleanor's voice was calm and cold. "Sit down, Derek." He looked from one face to another, realizing too late that he had walked into a trap. "You lied," he said to Luna. "No," she answered steadily. "You did." Two uniformed officers entered the room. Derek's control shattered in front of us. "This is not over," he snapped as they took his phone. "Yes, it is," Luna said. When he was gone, the library felt quiet in a new way. Not tense, not heavy, just still. Eleanor stepped toward her daughter and touched her cheek. "You did well," she said. Luna nodded, but her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "I could not have done it without him," she said softly. Eleanor looked at me then, not as an employee, not as a stranger. "Thank you," she said. Later, Luna and I stepped outside onto the stone terrace. The night air was cold. The mountains were dark shapes against the sky. For a long moment, we said nothing. "I was sure this would ruin me," Luna finally said. "I was sure letting you in would be a weakness." I touched her face gently. "It did not ruin you," I said. "It made you real." Her eyes shined. "The contract is still there," she whispered. "A year. An end date." My chest tightened. "Do you want it to end?" She shook her head. "No." I felt something rise in me that had been building since the first night in her bed. "Neither do I." She stepped into my arms, and I held her. Not because of a deal, not because of cameras, because I wanted to. When we returned to Denver, the board meeting was brutal for Derek, not for Luna. Grace presented the evidence. The illegal surveillance. The threats. The board did not remove Luna. They removed Derek. That night, back at the penthouse, Luna sat on the couch in a soft sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. "Your debts are gone," she said quietly. "Every bill. Paid." I nodded, but it did not feel like the victory I expected. She reached into a drawer and pulled out the contract binder. She placed it on the table between us. "I use this to control everything," she said. "I am done living like that." She flipped to the final page. Then she tore it in half. My heart pounded. "Luna." She looked at me, vulnerability clear in her eyes. "I am not asking you to stay because I owe you," she said. "I am asking you to stay because I want you. Not for a year. For real." For a moment, I could not speak. "I came here to survive," I finally said. "And now," she asked softly, "what do you want?" I thought about my mom in Texas. Safe now. No more bills crushing her. I thought about my father and the kind of man he hoped I would become. I looked at Luna. "I want you," I said. "And I want a life that feels like home." Her eyes filled with tears again. But this time, she smiled through them. "Then we build it," she whispered. I kissed her slowly, knowing there were no cameras, no scripts, no lies. Just us. The night Luna tore the contract, something inside me shifted. For months, I had been living inside a deal, a countdown. a safety net made of signatures and fine print. Now, the paper that protected me was lying in pieces on her glass coffee table, and for the first time since I walked into her office, I felt exposed in a different way. Not because I was desperate, because I cared. The penthouse felt warmer that night, not because the temperature changed, but because she did. Luna sat beside me on the couch, close enough that our knees touched. No sharp suit, no diamonds, just a soft sweater and bare feet tucked under her. "You are quiet," she said. "I am thinking," I admitted. "About leaving?" Her voice did not sound cold. It sounded afraid. "No," I said. "About staying for the right reasons." She searched my face. "And what are those?" I took a slow breath. When I signed that contract, I needed money. I needed a way out. I did not care about you. I cared about survival. She did not look offended. She nodded, like she respected the honesty. "But somewhere between pretending in public and holding you in that library, it stopped being fake," I continued. "You stopped being my boss. You stopped being a contract. You became mine." Her breath caught. "Adam," she whispered, "I do not know how to do this without rules." "Then we make new ones," I said gently. "Not about distance, not about cameras. About honesty." She studied me like I was a risk she was finally willing to take. "What if I fail at this?" she asked. "What if I am too controlling? Too focused? Too broken?" I smiled softly. "Then we fix it together." The next few weeks were strange in the best way. The press shifted from scandal rumors to praise. Luna handled the board with steady confidence. Derek's arrest became quiet corporate news, then faded. But inside the penthouse, things changed more. She started leaving her shoes by the door instead of lining them up perfectly. She laughed more. Real laughs, the kind that caught her off guard. One night, she walked into the kitchen while I was cooking and wrapped her arms around my waist without asking. I froze for a second. Then I relaxed into it. "You did not ask first," I teased. She pressed her face against my back. "New rules," she said. We began having dinners at the same end of the table instead of sitting apart. We argued about music. We watched old movies. She told me about growing up in a house where love felt like a performance review. "My father respected achievement," she said one night. "Not feelings." I reached for her hand. "I am not your father." "I know," she replied quietly. "That is why this scares me." One weekend, we flew to Texas. She insisted. "Your mother deserves to see where you came from," she said. "And I want to meet the woman who raised the man who stood beside me." My mom's house looked smaller than I remembered. The paint was peeling. The porch creaked. Luna stepped out of the car in simple jeans and a white blouse. No diamonds. No boardroom armor. My mom opened the door and stared at her like she was not sure what world she had just stepped into. "You must be Luna," my mom said carefully. "Yes, ma'am," she answered with a warm smile that made my chest swell. They talked in the kitchen while I fixed a loose cabinet hinge. I heard laughter. Real laughter. Later that night, Luna and I sat on the old porch swing. "This feels different," she said softly. "How?" "Quiet. Honest." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "I do not care about the trust clause anymore," she admitted. "I care about this." I turned to her. "About us?" "Yes." Back in Denver, Luna called a small press conference. I stood beside her, not as a contract husband, not as an employee, as her partner. She addressed the recent scandal directly, without fear. She confirmed Derek's removal from the company and the internal security reforms. Then a reporter asked the question everyone wanted answered. "Was your marriage arranged for business reasons?" The room went silent. Luna glanced at me. I felt her hand slip into mine. "It started as an arrangement," she said clearly. "But it did not stay that way. The flash of cameras felt different this time. Not threatening. Not fake." After the conference, we returned home. She walked to the window, looking over the city that once felt like a battlefield. "You could have walked away after your debts were paid," she said. "I could have. Why didn't you?" I stepped behind her and wrapped my arms around her waist. Because I did not want to survive anymore. I wanted to live. She turned in my arms and kissed me slowly. No urgency, no fear, no pretending, just certainty. Months later, on a quiet Sunday morning, I woke up before her. Sunlight spilled across the bed. Her hair was spread across the pillow. She looked peaceful in a way I had never seen in her office. I brushed a strand of hair from her face. She stirred and opened her eyes. "You are staring," she murmured. "I am thinking. About what? About how crazy this started." She smiled lazily. "You asked about the bed first." I laughed. "And now?" "Now I would not want to be anywhere else." She reached up and pulled me down for a kiss. No contract, no cameras, no investigator. Just us. A year ago I was drowning in debt and fear. Now I was standing in a home that felt real, beside a woman who chose me without a clause forcing her to. Luna once hired me to be her husband. She never expected to fall in love with him, neither did I. But sometimes the strongest things are built in the strangest ways, and this time we were not pretending at all.